Respected brothers and elders, as you and I very well know, that Allah Rabbul Izzat has created man exclusively for his worship. And one would only be deserving of the honorable title of being referred to as the true worshipper of Allah if his entire life is governed by Allah's obedience till death. We very well know that this is the reason why Allah has created us. But to deserve or to become deserving of this honorable title, that this man is the true worshipper of Allah, like in anything and everything, you would only call that person a mechanic whose daily occupation and profession is to fix cars. But that person who only gets under his car when he has a problem, no man will call him a mechanic. A tailor will be that person whose daily work is to sew and knit and do. That person will be called a tailor. Likewise, only that person will be deserving of the honorable title of being the worshipper of Allah, who governs his entire life in the obedience of Allah. Unfortunately, one of the greatest of dilemmas that the ummah today is facing, you and I have restricted the concept of obedience to Allah with occasions and venues. And unfortunately, this is how we are presenting and reflecting deen to our children, as a continuation from our last week's talk. So the child is told in advance that Ramadan is coming, you prepare, in Ramadan you obey Allah. A person goes to Mecca and Medina, now restricting ibadat to the concept of a venue. That now as long as we are here, I know I must perform my salah, I will dress as a Muslim, I will read Quran. Comes an occasion of a janazah in the family, restricting ibadat to situations, to conditions, to venues, to occasions. Such a person has worshipped Allah to a certain extent, but he has not done justice, or he will not become deserving of the true and the honorable title of being the servant of Allah. The ayat Kareemah that I recited before you, Allah speaks about those that maintain consistency in their amal, and regardless of the situations and the conditions that come. Just as Allah is the creator of man, Allah is equally the creator of the conditions that surround man. So conditions will change. At times it will be conducive to obey Allah, and at times it will not be conducive to obey Allah. At times Ramadan will be short, the fasting will be short, the salah will be easy. At times Fajr will be late, at times Fajr will be early. The one that will only come for Fajr when it is late, he hasn't worshipped Allah. The one that will only fast when it is winter, he has not understood the spirit of fasting. In fact, if I may perhaps add from a different angle, today being the last Friday of the month of Shawwal, and if there is any resemblance or if there is any continuation of the practices of Ramadan, then unfortunately for some it terminates at the very ending of Ramadan. For others it continues for the next month, and that is the month of Shawwal, and it ends here. We will now be entering into the next month. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam on one occasion advising his Sahaba, specifically draws his attention and he tells, oh my Sahabi, addressing Abdullah ibn Umar, Ya Abdullah, la takum mithla fulanin, kana yaqumu min al-layl, fataraka qiyam al-layl. Oh Abdullah ibn Umar, my advice to you is, whenever you start any action, don't ever leave that good action until death overpowers you. And then Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam exclusively told him that do not be like so and so, without mentioning that person's name, that he used to stand up and used to perform tahajjud namaz. And then somehow he decided and he terminated this relation which he had developed with Allah. And I am mentioning this specifically because in this Ramadan we had a situation, and in the Ramadan to come it will be more difficult. For verily the very ending of Ramadan will be the commencing of our festive season. And already in this Ramadan we've seen the unfortunate drastic changes that spirit that was with great effort developed and maintained in Ramadan, and a man came closer to Allah. The situation became very challenging because his last Jummah and his last Ramadan was now part of his holiday. So it was in fact, unfortunately, the notion that was created as though some people were only waiting for Ramadan to lapse so that they can go and once again go back into the evil practices. What the Ramadan that is to come in will be even more greater. The ending of Ramadan will signal the commencement of the holiday season. Brothers, for how long will this be the notion of ibadat? That ibadat, you worship Allah in Ramadan, you worship Allah in Makkah, you worship Allah on the occasion of Jannah. How long will be this our concept and our understanding of ibadat? So, oh Abdullah ibn Umar, don't be like so and so, but rather maintain consistency. Sayyidatuna Aisha radiallahu anha was asked, tell us something which Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam did. Aisha radiallahu anha says there was nothing very unusual about his practices. However, when he started one action, he would never ever leave that action until death overpowered him. The verse of the Quran, وَعْبُدَ رَبَّكَ حَتَّى يَأْتِيَكَ الْيَقِينَ, and worship your Lord continuously, perpetually, under all conditions and circumstances. Then only are you deserving of having the honorable title of worshipping Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. Situations will change and fluctuate. A man is obeying Allah. As I mentioned, obedience of Allah will only be if our entire life in every situation, a man is so punctual in the obedience of Allah, and in comes a wedding in the family. Unfortunately, at this juncture, all the commandments of Allah are neglected. All the commandments of Allah are shunned one side, and regard is given to the joy of anyone and everyone at the cost of earning the displeasure of Allah. To please the wife, I'm having a big thing. To please the in-laws, we are not having separate accommodation. To please my son-in-law, we will have it in this hall. To please my daughter-in-law, this will happen. Brothers, has the time not come that we now start considering Allah's pleasure in our matters? So what is it? That one, Sayyidina Aisha radiallahu anha said, when Nabi alayhi salam started an action, then that action would remain with him until death overpowered him. And this is the focus on which I've been speaking last week, and I want to make mention of all this week as well. That amal that were developed in Ramadan, there are two forms of abandoning. One is like this particular person I made mention of when Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam cautioned his Sahaba, don't ever give up an action. Like it is said very beautifully, that when a person starts an action, then the reward of that action is now being prepared in Jannah. So you started performing tahajjud namaz, the reward is that a palace will be designed for you in Jannah. Daily you perform, daily Allah is beautifying, decorating, building that palace. Suddenly the angels see that, oh Allah, this house has been left without roof, without bricks, and it has not been completed. So the malaika ask Allah, oh Allah, what has happened to this house that you were decorating and designing for your servant? So Allah says that now there's no more supply of raw materials. As long as he was performing, it was being built. He terminated, now there's no raw material coming. So how many of ours, because of Ramadan, unfortunately, fortunately that Ramadan has come to increase our amal, but so many of things which perhaps have been decorated or built have just been left like this. Nothing been complete, nothing been perfected. Why? Because Ramadan hardly lapses, and unfortunately, perhaps it could be said that many of the things that were half raised has been demolished after Ramadan. So understanding the situation, that at every juncture, what is the command of Allah? This is the ayat, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا رَبُّنَ اللَّهِ, those who said our Lord is Allah, ثُمَّ اسْتَقَامُوا, and they remained committed to the pledge that they made in this proclamation till death overpowered them. One Sahabi came to Nabi alayhi salam, oh Nabi of Allah, give me advice, short, brief, concise, and that's it. Nabi alayhi salam said, say I have brought iman on Allah, and then live your whole life by what that statement demands from you. The Nabi of Allah has come as a brightness and as a mercy unto humanity. And then he gives this to a physical example. He says, in the day when the sun has risen and has brightened the entire world, if some person goes and hibernates or hides himself underground, or he shuts the doors, or he closes all the avenues of light reaching him, and then he turns up and he says, no, the sun has not benefited me, and the sun hasn't brightened my day, I still need to on the light. It will be told to him, the sun has brightened the world. Unfortunately, the avenues of the rays of the sun reaching you, you have blocked it. Likewise, the Nabi of Allah has come as a source of hidayat. If you will continue misusing your sight, oh my brother, and if you will continue abusing your hearing ability, and you will continue speaking that which invites the wrath of Allah, these three avenues via which either good or bad penetrates, you have now sealed the avenues of good to penetrate. Allah's qasam, a time will come, as the Quran says, when these hearts deviate from truth and become blackened. They come to such a point, وَإِن تَدْعُهُمْ إِلَى الْهُدَى فَلَنْ يَهْتَدُوا إِذًا أَبَدًا. Allah said, O Nabi of Allah, even you, by your eloquence of speech, and you, by your nabuwwat, have to stand up and invite these people. These hearts have become so deviated, even your words will not impress them. Yet in Ramadan, the environment was conducive to read Quran. 20, 30 people were sitting in the masjid, so it made it easier for me. My only challenge is now in Ramadan, nobody wants to touch Allah's kalam. This is the time I will attach myself to Allah's Quran. Allah's qasam, now Ramadan multiplied our reward because of its significance. Now outside Ramadan, Allah will equally multiply our reward, not because of the significance of this month, but now the value of that amal will go up in the eyes of Allah, because nobody wants to come close to it. Now the ones that will hold it, Allah will love them and raise them and elevate them. Will you turn your back to Allah at the separation of Ramadan? Will you turn your back to Allah after returning from Makkah? Will you turn your back from Allah after 3 months have lapsed after the demise of your beloved? In Islam, in every action, it is better that you do something little but continuously. You are better off going to visit your deceased in the graveyard daily than going there on Eid day and sitting the whole Eid day. Take out 5 minutes daily and read 3 times Surah Ikhlas, will earn you greater reward, and you will be more beloved to Allah than spending the whole day of Eid there. Allah loves consistency. Allah loves that you maintain your relation. Brothers, we do the same thing. Someone develops relation, we say, by wait, let's assess the man. We don't know how long is he going to carry on. I don't know. I've seen many people that came and have fallen apart. Let's see how long he maintains relation and how sincere he is. Give him a year. Allah wants to see. Allah, 1 month and we fall out. And this is what Allah wants to see in us now. There will be times when you will worship Allah, people will praise you. It's very easy to worship Allah at that time, brothers. The time to worship Allah is when you stand up and people insult you. And before the world can insult you, the first to condemn and criticize and ridicule that noble beard of Nabi alayhi salam will be your wife and your children. If you want to enjoy the sweetness of this kalima that you have been reading from the day you open your eyes, Allah's qasam, take the opportunity of obeying Allah when people oppose you. You will get such sweetness and such pleasure that no food and no drink is given to you till today. But to obey Allah when things are conducive, when things are favorable, when people are praising you, then I don't know, are you worshipping Allah or are you worshipping the praises of people? Brothers, consistency. Amal we have to maintain. The fear that I have seen in this Ramadan is the only thing that has initiated me with this talk. The next Ramadan that is to come, you see the entire Ramadan, the man is coming to a climax in his ibadat. By the end of Ramadan, he looks like an angel. Ya Allah, and because of it being joined with the festive season, not a day after Ramadan, and such a drop in his ibadat, and such lack of nur, that one wonders what has happened to this entire effort that was developed in Ramadan. Brothers, understand, deen, complete deen. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu dkhulu fi silmi kaffa. O you who believe, enter into deen in totality. Brothers, at this time, when the entire family has now decided to sleep till sun will rise, how sad there are so many of our brothers and sisters, they have been deprived of prostration before Allah in the early parts of the morning. How sad there are so many people, Allah's qasam, who are deprived, who can read the newspaper from cover to cover and listen to every bulletin, but wallah, my Allah has deprived them of touching His Quran. How sad there are people who can speak and cherish and honor this one and that one, but they are deprived of speaking about Allah. Now by the passing of Ramadan, when people have turned their backs from Allah, let us now revive the role of Abu Bakr. Let us stand up, and each man in his own business circle, in his own family circle, ask those that are around him, ask those that are under him, are we going to abandon the practices that were maintained in the month of Ramadan? We make dua to the Almighty Allah. He infused and instilled within us the same zeal and the same spirit of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, that we obey Allah in every condition, in every venue, regardless of the situations and the conditions that surround us, focusing on the obedience of Allah, living a life of the obedience of Allah until death overtakes us. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.